Stop it already. This is something I'm definitely going to get teased about later. Although he screamed this in his heart, it didn't reach anyone's heart. Isn't this the time to be flirting? You were so angry you were saying you were going to kill Cornu, but now it's like that never happened. That's not right, Masuki thought. Well, Velgrind herself seemed indifferent, so Rudra's anger probably didn't last long, but even so, she left it too long. When Feldway and the others joined the battle and seemed to have begun to persuade Cornu, he probably lost the will to fight, but Masuki's opinion was that if that was the case, he should just settle the matter properly. The point is, stop being affectionate and clean up after yourself properly. That said, I can understand why Rudra lost interest in Cornu. Cornu is a bad person, but he's not a bad person either. No, he is a bad person, but he seems to have a very lack of common sense, and it was clear that this was due to poor education by Cornu's comrades, Feldway, and the others. It wouldn't be a bad person at heart, but it was more like he was a child getting cocky. His quick temper made him seem petty, which made him hard to hate. Well, in my case, I can't cause any trouble, so I can just watch from a safe distance like that. Even so, Masuki thought he would wait and see. Cornu was so shocked that he was speechless, and just followed Benimaru and the others with his eyes. Cornu was unconscious for only a short time. Therefore, the moment he opened his eyes, Benimaru had already dealt the final blow to Jahil. Even Cornu couldn't understand why Jahil had been torn to pieces. He couldn't follow Benimaru's sword stroke with his eyes. No, seriously, what is he? Feldway thought, has he finally understood reality? Do you finally understand why we were admonishing you? Even to Feldway, Jahil was a hated enemy. Vega, whom Feldway had begun to trust, had come back to life, but was killed without even exchanging a word with him, although the only salvation was death. It was Jahil's doing that was the cause. If he had put off persuading Cornu and cooperated with Vega, perhaps his fate might have been different. However, to Feldway, Cornu was also an important ally. Until now, I've been a little too self-centered. A bit. Hey, stop romanticizing yourself in your mind. The outfielders Obra and Zalario were noisy, but Feldway completely ignored them. That's why, from now on, I swear to cherish my comrades. Mr. Feldway, will you follow me, Cornu? Of course. If you're okay with me, I'd be happy to. Feldway's persuasion was successful. Cornu put aside his grudge against Velgrind and the others and made peace with them. Or rather, he was also calculating the pros and cons of not obeying here, as he knew that Benimaru and the others would become his enemies, and so he was able to make the right decision. Obra and Zalario said nothing more, and just watched with lukewarm eyes. Image the scene, then returns to the site of the final battle. Veldanava was confused. Perhaps because of this, they are having difficulty analyzing the situation. That was inevitable, as just when he thought his beloved Lucia had returned to the Yellow Night, spring, Ivalage unfortunately resumed its activities. Moreover, Ivalage's target was Veldanava. No. Ivalage had set his sights on Lucia's soul, which Veldanava held dear. Ha 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 ha, love is wonderful. Let's become one, shall we? Then we'll be happy. Everyone will be happy. Ivalage was hideous. Although she has Lucia's appearance, her insides are horrifying and disgusting. No, it wasn't supposed to be like this. The Lucia I loved. Even if you gather all the pieces of Lucia together and knead them into one form, it's hard to call it the complete real thing. It was only at this point that Veldanava finally realized his mistake. How foolish, Velda, but I am the one who drove you mad. It was because I died that you were led astray. No, you did nothing wrong, Veldanava wanted to shout. He thought that it was his fault, not Lucia's. However, there was no time left for that. Ivalage was approaching very close. In Ivalage's hand was memory. In his place, Veldanava held kindness. Ivalage attacked Veldanava with his sword, as if trying to steal his love. They are killing and devouring, trying to become one again. That is by no means a bad thing. For Ivalage, this is an act of justice. For Veldanava, this was the providence of the world and the truth. The world is cruel, but it gives you everything. That is the world Veldanava created. Veldanava, the All-One, could no longer bear the loneliness. That was why he created the world to relieve his boredom. In the process, his younger siblings, who share the same origin as Veldanava, the dragon species, were born. With the number of dragon species, now at 4, the chaotic world stabilized. Order was restored. The 7 primordial angels were created to manage this. Laws were established in a stable world, and the Axis world became firmly established. Veldanava was no longer alone, but he still could not fill the void in his heart. The world was too immature to replace the omnipotence that he had thrown away. Veldanava waited patiently. The world is slowly changing. As indigenous gods were born as embodiments of great power, the ancestor of the gods, luminous Twilight Valentine, was born. With the appearance of the divine ancestor, the world underwent a revolution. Intelligent life forms were born from the life that filled the world. And then, after a long time, humanity was finally born, a being that could act freely, assert its will, and become a receptacle for the soul. Veldanava was overjoyed. For Veldanava, who was bored with the world of nothingness, just watching the activity of life was enjoyable. The activities of the living creatures known as humans were so moving that Veldanava even dreamed of becoming a part of that world. However, there was a problem. Humans who have acquired intelligence stimulate each other and behave in ways that are impossible to predict. If left unchecked, they will soon begin fighting each other and walking the path to self-destruction. Several worlds were born from the base world, but similar trends could be seen in all of them. It's because of emotions. Wisdom, desire, joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness were given to humans because they were thought to be necessary for greater human development. However, emotions that grew too large tended to exclude the opinions of others. When people's ideologies and definitions of what is correct differed, disputes and arguments arose. Rather than engaging in rational discussion, there were many cases in which people got angry and simply asserted their own righteousness, resulting in conflict. This is because the underlying argument was a cause for justice that the people involved could never compromise on. Veldanava thought, let's accept that these phenomena are a necessary evil to a certain extent, and accept the way the world is as a training ground for the soul. If people were completely controlled, there would be no more conflict. However, this would mean that individual emotions would no longer fluctuate, and even if things were equal and fair, there would be no free will, resulting in a world without stimulation or dystopia. So it's similar to when I was lonely. Such a world was not what Veldanava wanted. Since then, they have made numerous adjustments and tried to develop it into what humanity desires. By changing the conditions in the numerous parallel worlds of other dimensions, different evolutions were achieved. Guy and the others helped out with this. Just as light creates shadows, the 7 demons of the beginning were born in response to the 7 angels of the beginning. Guy was the leader and strongest of them all. Since they were not created directly by Veldanava, they could not give orders to the primordial beings. Guy helped them because he had formed a friendship with Veldanava. It wasn't just Guy. Veldanava had other collaborators as well. They are naturally occurring gods, such as Dagrul and Ramaris. Taking inspiration from these indigenous gods, he gave birth to the divine ancestor. Luminous Twilight Valentine. He created him as a new life form with a physical body, and he would use his capable mind to help Veldanava. With their cooperation, the ideal environment was finally completed. A system was constructed that would allow the soul to circulate through all dimensions in an eternal cycle. Thus, each world will develop in a wide variety of ways. When everything started to work out, the wheel of fate began to turn. Upon meeting Lucia, Veldanava learns about love. The two fell in love, and Milim was conceived within Lucia. At the same time as Milim was born, Veldanava lost all of his power. However, such facts were trivial. In the end, Veldanava loved this world, and he wished for his daughter Milim to grow up safely and healthily, as he had determined that this was how all living things should be. He hoped that his daughter Milim would surpass her parents. Therefore, even if he lost all of his powers, Veldanava was not troubled. There should have been no problem at all. Veldanava could never have imagined that there was such a despicable fool who would boast of having defeated a godlike being that had lost all of its powers and become a mere human and achieved god-killing. Although it was a gross misinterpretation, the responsibility for allowing all freedom of thought lay with Veldanava. And when that murderous blade reached his beloved Lucia, Veldanava also began to have doubts. Was I really right? With Veldanava gone, it seemed as if the world would lose order. However, thanks to the efforts of the mediators led by Guy, the world was barely able to maintain a good state of affairs. It is impossible for a god to be defeated by a human. Or perhaps it was due to the coercive power of the world. By the nature of the system, God's love must be poured out equally. However, it's possible that the error occurred because Veldanava fell in love with a specific individual. This is evidence of God's weakening, and is also the reason why God became confused. In that case, it would be better not to love anyone, but Veldanava was lost in thought and thought that there was no point in doing so. The constructed system deemed Lucia's existence harmful. Therefore, if a backlash called compulsion occurred, and Veldanava and Lucia were eliminated, the world would need to be returned to zero and rebuilt. That was the conclusion Veldanava had come to, but it seemed that his thinking might have been fundamentally wrong. Kyaha. His evil smile was filled with pure malice. This behavior is not evil, but it shows absolutely no consideration or consideration for others, and is extremely selfish and self-centered. Veldanava tolerated this. The current situation is the result of this, so it can be said that they brought it on themselves. Swords cross. At that moment, Ivarage laughed. I'll love you, we'll be together forever and ever. What are you saying, ah? What spread from Ivalage was a bottomless void. In his battle with Guy, Ivalage had learned the terrifying, soul-devouring technique and made it his own. Desire clung to Veldanava. They have a physical, ethereal form, and once you embrace them, they won't let go. I like you, I love you so much. This is what love feels like. Veldanava was being swallowed up. Caught in the grip of murky desire, there is no escape. Veldanava tried to get away from Ivalage, but he also understood that this was impossible. This is not simply absorption. It is a force that forces what was originally one thing to return to its original state. Veldanava realized that there was no escaping this. He had finally managed to reunite with Lucia, but no matter how regretful he felt, there was nothing he could do. It's okay, Velda, you're not alone. Oh, I've dragged you into this again. You fufu, it doesn't matter. I got to see how much Milim has grown, so I have no regrets. Lucia smiled and said that she was satisfied with having fulfilled her role of passing the tradition on to the next generation. Lucia gently told Veldanava, who was still sad after hearing this, in order to soothe him. The heart is a fickle thing, but even so I loved you and I still love you. Those feelings will never change. No matter how many times I'm reborn, I'm sure. That's right, Veldanava replied. It's the same for me too, he said. Just having Lucia, there made me feel fulfilled. That is love. And that crystal is Milim. Why had I forgotten about that? It was such an important thing, Veldanava thought, feeling strange. I had been contemptuous and neglecting Milim, who was very, very important to me. I can't believe what I've done, but it's an undeniable reality. It seemed that he had gone crazy, but it would be too late to bring him back to his senses now. The present is the punishment from God. This may also be a form of coercion. Veldanava thought so and laughed at himself, thinking that it was all his own doing. As a result of having loneliness and being selfish, he caused trouble to the many worlds he had created and became the source of destruction for everything. We dreamed of a world where everyone could live happily, but we are approaching an end that will spread misery and despair. It was all his own fault. Veldanava had no choice but to admit this and was filled with grief. You're not the only one to blame. It was all inevitable, and it's not time to give up. Yet, Veldanava was confused. He couldn't figure out what Lucia was saying. The world is cruel, but it's not all that bad, is it? After all, your heart is so warm. But it's okay, because there is hope for us too. Hope Elpies. It's a name I've only recently heard. A cheeky slime stood in front of me. The name is Veldanava suddenly remembered something. A conversation I once had with Lucia. Should we name this baby? When asked this question, Veldanava answered with a happy feeling. Sright, wouldn't Milim be good? Why had I forgotten? That was before Milim was born. Veldanava had certainly spoken another name. Now that I remember that, I'm convinced that it was all inevitable. I see, surpassing his parents had been achieved. As he was about to be assimilated by Ivalage, Veldanava felt enveloped in happiness once again. Veldanava was no longer lonely. My heart felt fulfilled. Ivalage continued to absorb power, but I still didn't feel anything. Yin and Yang. Holding Lucia's hand, she curls up into a tiny ball. Ime. Right before my eyes, Veldanava was eaten by Ivarage. I'm sure you don't understand what I'm saying, but I don't understand it either. Will I be able to use my powers to separate the Veldanava that Ivalage has eaten? If that were possible, it would be possible to significantly reduce the force. Rimuru-kun, what are you planning to do? Gi Gaisan. It's not a matter of what I'm going to do. Also, please stop using the honorific Kimi at times like this. With that statement, you're just dumping the responsibility on me. It is important to strongly assert that the general contractor also has supervisory responsibility. Well, a small fry like me will just follow Gaisan. Don't underestimate me. You should handle your own business. No. It's not just about me. It's everyone's problem. That's what I said, but unfortunately there were some heartless people there. You see, Rimuru-san, I couldn't do something like that. I have no choice but to agree. Same on the right. Dino, Gracia, and Pico were the first to argue that it was not their turn to get involved. I can understand that point of view. That's because, no matter how you look at it, Ivalage, who had absorbed Veldanava, had turned into a monster. Its appearance changes from that of a beautiful woman to that of a hybrid of a dragon and a human. What came to mind was Milim in her stampede madness state. Her entire body was covered in dragon scales, and she was in her strongest state, where normal attacks and magic were completely ineffective. It seemed he intended to completely absorb Veldanava, and he hadn't made any moves yet. However, he had a premonition that the moment he started to move, that would be the end of the world. Just by looking at it, you can tell how dangerous it is. Image. Not only did he already look strong, but Ivalage also had Genesis-class swords in both hands. It was unclear whether he could wield two swords, but if he had devoured Veldanava and was able to control all of his powers, it was safe to assume that he had also mastered perfect sword techniques. To be honest, it seemed like Dino and the others wouldn't be able to do anything. Rimuru, I'll help you. That's what Milim said, but it seems like she's also injured all over. Major injuries have healed, but small scars remain. If Milim were healthy, those would disappear in an instant. Rimuru-san, I'll help you too. An incredibly beautiful girl. That's what Chloe told me. But I know. Chloe's foresight into the future was meaningless in a suspended world, and her energy had almost been depleted due to the fierce battle she had been fighting. To be honest, I wasn't entirely happy with having Milim and Chloe help me right now. In truth, he wanted her to help, but he didn't want to put Milim and Chloe in danger. I appreciate your kind words, but leave this to me. I want you to observe how I fight and find out if Ivarage has any weaknesses. I said, swallowing my tears. I see if that's the case, leave it to me. That's not true. Gai-san, I didn't say that to you. Don't worry, you're good at stalling for time, aren't you? Buy us as much time as you can. When you put it that way, I can't deny it. Among the people here, or rather compared to anyone else, I'm the one who's best at stalling for time. Besides, I have Seal by my side now, so I don't feel anxious at all. Feeling that there's no other way, I decided to accept the proposal. Do your best, Rimuru. Ramiris, now in her adult form, cheered me on. Although she looks like a lady, she behaves like a child. Perhaps because she grew, using a sneaky technique of borrowing energy from me. I feel an incredible sense of discomfort towards Ramiris. It's good that she has become able to display great powers like primitive magic, but if you ask me if she's suited to combat, the answer is no. If I asked Ramiris to help me, it would probably hold me back. Hey Rimuru, are you thinking of something rude? No, that's not true. That's fine then. Well then, I'll try out a few things for now. I said, turning my eyes to Ivalage. Yes, I'm counting on you. With Guy's voice behind me, I shrugged my shoulders in response. Veldora was the one to rely on here. It looks like it's my turn. What's really encouraging is that they have announced their intention to participate. However, if Veldora were to fight alongside them, it would mean that there would be no safety device. It's unlikely that they'd both be defeated at the same time, but the possibility is not zero. Please put it on hold. The final line of defense is the ultimate secret weapon. I'll wait and see for a bit longer. If that's the case, I'll trust you and wait. Because Veldora was there, Guy had left it to me to buy time. Although I didn't want to, I had no choice but to admit that it was the best plan. For now, let's give it a try. They should have grasped the enemy's military strength and then formulated a full-scale operation. Well, I'll try it once. With that said, I took off towards Ivalage. As I got closer to Ivalage, I realized once again how dangerous it was. How can I put it? It's shocking. It gives off a mischievous, sinister, evil aura that makes it hard to imagine that humans could defeat it. It's okay. Master and Lord are not losing either. You see, I'm not that evil. Well, I felt a little more at ease because Seal-san gave me his stamp of approval. Still, though, the amount of energy is astonishing. It is not possible to measure it accurately, but if converted into existence value, it is likely to exceed several billion. There's no doubt it's in the trillions. Teeth. That's impossible. If it's more than 100 times my prediction, that's just impossible. How can I say that I haven't lost? Moreover, this is an assertion. Maybe Seal's calculation skills have deteriorated a little. There is no truth to this, absolutely not. It would be troubling if that were the case, but perhaps its performance deteriorated when it was kidnapped by Veldanava. I'm happy that you rely on me, Master, but sometimes I want to see you get serious. Yes. I'm scared of Seal's overestimation. I'm always serious, but no one seems to understand. Well, that's fine. Now is not the time to be fighting with my partner, so I think I'll try to do my best. I readjusted my beloved sword, Hope Elpis, and aimed it at Ivalage. Ha ha ha, this is what it feels like to be strong. Ivalage laughed loudly, and upon noticing me, launched 2 consecutive attacks. Slow. I deal with the situation without panicking. Far from being that slow, it was actually frighteningly fast, but if you use thought, acceleration, to look at it, it's no problem. It's unclear what the current magnification is, but you can see Ivarage's movements and his future aims as if they were right in front of your eyes. Since a competitive spirit is important in a match, I don't hold back on my bluffing. If this distracts Ivarage, then I'll have made a profit. He deflects the sword on his right hand that touches him first, then swings down the sword on his left. Then he delivers a powerful side kick to the body, which is now defenseless. In aerial combat, there is no foothold, so it was difficult to transmit power. However, he was now used to it, and could generate a repulsive force and exert his power with maximum efficiency, whether in the atmosphere or anywhere else. In fact, he was even able to perform feats, such as spreading his wings like a bat and accelerating his body, thereby increasing the power of his attacks. Since the suspended world is currently active, air resistance and other dynamics are not in effect, and yet I can move without any problems, so I've grown quite a bit. Perfect. Right. You could have praised me more, I thought as I pursued Ivalage. Ivarage quickly adjusted his stance and blocked my sword. One sword wasn't enough, so he crossed 2 swords together. But however, unable to withstand the overwhelming impact that occurred when the swords collided, he was blown away. Ivalage gouged out destruction into the ground before crashing into the Tensukaku and stopping. The force of the impact was evident from the fact that the Tensukaku, which was supposed to be indestructible, had once again shattered. But it's strange. It was certainly a tremendous impact, but it had almost no effect on me. In fact, it felt like nothing more than a gentle breeze. This proves that we were the ones making the push. Oh, surprisingly. Is this really their full power? Thinking that's stupid, I reject the idea. I can sense a terrifying power coming from Ivalage. Its presence is eerie, and according to Seal, its existence value reaches the trillions. Despite this, I was surprised to find that I was doing better than I had expected. Master is evolving every day, so it's only natural. It's truly amazing. As if answering my question, Seal declared that it was obvious. No, it's true. I did want to be praised, but when I'm praised so highly that it makes my teeth ache, it actually feels like a lie. Well, yeah. I'm surprised at how much I've grown, and it's not that I'm not happy to be praised. Being able to move without Seal's assistance is like being able to ride a bicycle for years to come. It's a skill acquired through experience, so my body reacts automatically, without me having to think too hard about it. That's why I'm able to fight Ivarage. I shouldn't have hesitated and missed this opportunity. Before the blown-away Ivalage could stand up, I went into pursuit mode. He slammed his sword, which was wrapped in black flames, into Ivarage, whittling away at him. The reason I couldn't tell him to chop it into small pieces was because it was too hard to cut. Naturally, Ivalage's dragon scales were as strong as Genesis class. To cut them would require incredible skill and a powerful weapon. Regardless of my skill and level, the weapon grades were equal, so I decided it was simply impossible. There's no need to go easy on me, you know. That's why I'm not going easy on you. Seal's perception seems a bit strange, but is it really okay? While worrying about these things, I began to devise a surefire strategy for the battle against Ivalage. The battle between Rimuru and Ivalage got off to a spectacular start. Guy, who was watching, sent heartfelt praise. You bastard, you've gotten strong again. The one to respond to this was Diablo, who had rushed to the scene having fulfilled his duties. Q-fu-fu-fu-fu, of course. As expected of Rimuru-sama, I am very pleased to see that you have grown to this extent. However, this is not all. Rimuru-sama and I are connected by the corridor of souls, but it seems that you have not yet shown your true strength. Perhaps you are planning to teach us the basics. Huh, so you're still not serious about that. From Rimuru's perspective, he was being very serious, but from Diablo's point of view, he was underestimating his enemy and going easy on them. The proud Diablo tried to give a speech to the surprised Guy, but of course, if Rimuru-sama, who is a true god, were to get serious, it would end like that. The first to speak was Feldway, who had been my enemy until just a moment ago. Before he knew it, he had become a Rimuru believer on par with Diablo. This, too, was a strange story. Guy looked at him with a look that said, "What is this guy talking about?" But Feldway paid no attention to it. To Rimuru-sama, the Ivalage are no match for him, and yet seeing him go easy on us, it seems he is showing us fools an example, just as Diablo said. Hey, there's another idiot like Diablo here, Guy thought, getting a headache. A senior idiot is lecturing a new idiot in a condescending manner. TCH, how dare someone like you utter Rimuru-sama's name? Did you get his permission? I'm sure he's showing me how to do it, but that has nothing to do with you know. Maybe I'm being indignant about the wrong thing, Guy wondered. But he was finding it troublesome and no longer wanted to point it out. Instead, Ultima, who had arrived late, shouted, I mean, what is going on? Why is someone like Feldway talking about Rimuru-sama like he's superior, leaving us behind? That was a very valid point. Although they are acting like they are friends, they have not yet completely reconciled. At the very least, an apology should come first. Well, now is not the time for that, so let's discuss the matter once things have calmed down. Tensura was the one trying to calm him down, but if she hadn't considered the time and place, she would have sided with Ultima. You have surrendered to Rimuru-sama, haven't you? If so, I have no complaints. Karara is the only one who has the style of forgiving someone if they become her ally. His integrity was second to none, even among the demons. Meanwhile, what about the other spectators? Well, Rimuru is amazing after all, isn't he? After all, he's my friend. I'm actually closer to Rimuru than he is. After all, we're best friends. And I met him first. Kiwahaha. If you say so, then I must go first. Also, Rimuru and I are allies. So you should know that no one can surpass our relationship. Shut up, I don't know anything about that. That's good. I'm more useful at work than master, and there's no doubt that you're close to Rimuru. It was clear that Rimuru was likely to win, and the mood was bright. Each of them said whatever they wanted, and a boasting battle was about to begin about who was the most important to Rimuru. Glancing at the people having this exchange, Chloe muttered quietly, because I'm the one Rimuru-san loves the most. She was an adult and didn't take part in pointless arguments. Zalario and Obra could not hide their surprise. He's not Feldway, but his strength is abnormal. That's true. I never thought Ivarage, who had devoured Lord Veldanava, would be so overwhelmed. I knew Rimuru was strong, but I never imagined he would be this strong. Or, rather, there was no way I could have imagined it. To them, the stellar king dragon Veldanava was the supreme being. He had despaired when he had witnessed the sight of him being eaten by the evil age, but the situation he was in now was more than shocking. It was surreal. Ah, is that Rimuru? Cornu is astonished to see Rimuru for the first time, but the next moment, Feldway, who is standing a short distance away, gives him some forceful instruction. This is Rimuru-sama. If you make another disrespectful remark, you should know that even I, who am usually tolerant, will not forgive you. No one knew what tolerance was. Still, it was clear that it was best to be extremely careful when speaking about anything related to Rimuru. Dino and the others comfort Cornu, who is feeling down after being scolded. Well, you'll understand eventually. That's right. Feldway is annoying, but what he says isn't wrong. Rimuru-san Sama is the person who will be our employer, so I need you to respect him as well. Cornu thought. What the hell is Rimuru? Why is this newcomer acting all big without me even knowing? And so. However, as I watched them fight, I began to feel foolish for worrying. The idea that strength is everything is wrong, but it's a natural logic for Cornu and his friends. If you're not strong, no one will follow you. To Cornu, who was bound by common sense, Feldway was the ideal boss. He was not happy that such a boss had come to worship a newcomer, but as he looked at Rimuru, he realized how foolish he had been. That's amazing. Rimuru, no, Lord Rimuru. Okay, I've decided, from today onwards, I will also respect Lord Rimuru. It only takes a moment for them to change their minds. Time did not pass, so according to the laws of physics, it was just an instant. Benimaru and Zijin looked on as if it was only natural. It might not be our turn. Yes, this battle is beyond our reach. The exchange between the two confidants shows their absolute trust in Rimuru. Looking at this from the side, Yuki, who was standing a little distance away, thought, I must absolutely not become an enemy of Rimuru-san. Yuki is a man who has long since given up on his dream of world domination, but he has no intention of giving up on everything he wants to do. If Zistave is truly returned, he wants to make Cagali queen and turn it into a country where she can live happily with her friends, but that's just how it is. He had been thinking about traveling around the world and broadening his horizons. He wanted to increase the number of his allies and have more influence. But seeing Rimuru's dangerousness made him realize that it was not good to go too far. The message was that we should never forget to exercise self-restraint. And so the demon lurks in the darkness, continuing to operate in the shadows. The one who was calm and composed was Ridra. Standing next to Velgrind, he looked down on the others and enjoyed the sights. That Rimuru guy is quite something. Yes, I was completely defeated too, so I understand that you shouldn't be hostile towards them. He's harmless as long as you don't anger him, but once he loses his temper,